Mountain back to Atlantic Ocean. Open me hills to Pocondre. To educate, elevate, and promote. Yeah. Focus on Liberia. For Liberia, Liberia. For Liberia, yeah, 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 yeah. From Monday to Sunday. From Monday to Sunday, it's focused on Liberia. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information. Talking about culture, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday. Focus on.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another session of Focus on Liberia on the Marketplace. I am your co-host, Gabriel Carter. Today, I have in the studio with me, Jimmy Eastman, and the longtime host who took a hiatus is back with us today, William Bernard King. Welcome back to the to FOL, my man. Today, we have a great discussion to talk about. We're going to be looking at the Liberia Electricity Corporation. We're looking at the management inefficiencies. We're looking at the management change that is happening right now. What could, possibly be the next way forward. From what we're looking at, there is, from what we've seen so far, there's a lot of money in that the company is bringing in, that entity is bringing in. The problem is, I think the bigger problem we want to answer, the question we want to answer is, how is it they're bringing that much money in, but there isn't enough at the bottom line, right? So what are the management inefficiency? What does that lie? And also, maybe we can look at, this is not my strongest suit. This is not, maybe William, since you have a background in electricity in that area, we can dive a little bit into the infrastructure, right? Maybe the problem could be from the infrastructure standpoint in terms of how we bring customer online, how we, get bring access to other people that may be in need of electricity. So there's a lot to talk about. This is going to be part one. Hopefully we will have part two next week, and we will bring another gentleman on as well who has a depth of background also on the infrastructure side as well to talk about it. But today we're going to be looking at the management inefficiencies, the numbers, and everything else in between. So, gentlemen, welcome to Focus on Liberia. You're not strangers, but I want to give you guys a moment to maybe talk about, introduce yourself to everybody else. I know you guys are not strangers, but William, maybe we should start with you since you've been away quite a bit.
Hey, to all of our fans, all our listeners, viewers, and so forth, it's so good to be back. I had taken some time off, and you're like, what has the guy been up to? What has he been doing? Well, so
tell the people what you've been up to, please.
Well, Gabe, I actually went and I got my MBA in entrepreneurship with a focus on real estate, of course. Quite a good
Congratulations.
I got it from Pepperdine University. And so for all of our Liberians out there, if you ever want to see the paperwork, let me know. So you guys will know that. this is real, And also, but I will say this for everybody that want to see, I'm going to charge you about 200, 300 US dollars
There you
because
go.
I got to pay student loan.
Yes.
um,
Exactly.
so it's actually interesting today because I spent about 13 years working for Southern California Edison, not Con
Mm,
Ed, Southern California Edison, which is on the West Coast, California.
right.
And I
For
worked.
those who don't know what, tell them, maybe you can tell them what that
Yeah,
is.
yeah. Southern California Edison is a major provider of electricity
Utility.
in Southern California. There's actually about 4 or 5 major utilities in this area.
Yeah.
And last I checked, I think they do about 50,000 square miles area, and they provide electricity in that area to make sure the grid is working, to make sure the grid is updated, reliable, efficient electricity in a safe manner. So that's the company that I work for, and I work in the supply chain division. But I was also privileged to look at and partner and do some work cross functionally with the different departments: transmission and distribution, generation, customer service, because we do supply chain, so we touch on all of
Wow.
those. And then
Yeah.
in about 2018, 2019, I stepped away, focusing on real estate entrepreneurial stuff.
Yeah.
So it's been a good journey, and electricity, Liberia goes hand in hand. We all need it. We all want it,
Yeah.
and since going back to Liberia in 2012 until now, no, sorry, 2008, been going back and forth. You hear that generator, the electricity, the
And
cost of
buzzing.
everything is so much. So we're going to unpack certain things today.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was humbled by is that just because you work in this industry, there's so many dynamics, and you can always learn from different people. So as we go about today with our conversation, it's really more conversational,
Yeah.
on what's been going on with LEC and the management, and let's look at pros and cons, and let's see how we can move this thing forward. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And as I said before we came on the air, I've always, kind of pigeonhole you into the real estate finance aspect of it, but I forgot that you also have a very, lot of years of experience in the electricity industry as well. So it will be as I said, it's good to pick. It'll be good picking your brains as well. Jimmy.
Yes.
So
Sorry about that. I got calls coming in.
yeah.
This is your humble co-host here. I have some background in power generation. I worked with LEC for about 3 years after they had sent me to Ivory Coast to study electrical engineering,
Hmm.
and I worked with T&D generation, and I was able to do some studies with planning department regarding the cost of electricity to what it costs us to produce it, and also I was in protection. You have to provide protection for the network, reclosers, um, ground fault trippers. So I did a little bit of that. It's been many years now. I've deviated. I've been into telecom for the last maybe 25 years. But I hope I can add some light here for us for this discussion,
Hmm.
so that our audience will be able to benefit from it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
So, let's jump into it. So, I want to, share. I think electricity is a very um, essential part of any thriving democracy or any thriving country overall. And for us, I think that is in addition to the many things that we haven't been figure out. Uh, Access to electricity has been one of those challenges. As I said, I've traveled the region in Ghana. I spent this earlier this year. I spent close to almost 3 months there. The entire 3 months that I was there in Ghana, in Accra, we only had outage for 30 minutes. And my friends, that made the news the next day. People were upset that electricity had to go for 30 minutes. And these people were all on the news complaining why the government were not. And for me, I was kind of baffled, but thinking about the people in Liberia. Now imagine sometimes some communities won't have it for days on, right? So here's the people that are so used to electricity that for 30 minutes that electricity they didn't have it. It made the headlines. The same thing in Ivory Coast in 2023. I was there for about 3 weeks. It was only outage for 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and it came back. Right. So I say this to say that other countries gets it. Right. Other countries get it that this is essential, and if you look at it from the economic standpoint, it makes a lot of that. You can see the difference. Right. The story that I wanted to share I think about 6 years ago, there was a German. He has an engineering background as well. He wanted to bring a company in Liberia that produces PVC pipes, the pipes that we use for plumbing in houses to use plumbing, to manufacture it there, right? We had the first conversation, second conversation, the third conversation that we're supposed to have. Actually, we had that conversation, but at that third conversation, one of the things he brought up was that, Gabriel, you guys have the most expensive electricity on the continent. Why is that? At the time, I think it was 35 cents per kilowatt. He said, this is the most expensive, right? And he said, even if we were to bring this company there to manufacture PVC pipes in the country to distribute it to other countries, most of the profit that we will be making will go towards the cost of electricity. It doesn't make business sense, right? So that deal, in as much that I think that could have been a good idea, I think that killed that deal because again, the whole essence of having a business is to make a profit, to make some kind of money. You don't want to keep running a business without making a profit. So for me, that kind of is a good segue into this discussion. Ever since then, things has improved. I think right now we're at 34 cents. 24 cents per kilowatt. So there is currently, for both of you, there's currently a management shift happening at the LEC.
Yeah.
What do you think we could learn from that? From how if you can look at it from every aspect, either from the efficiency standpoint or from a managerial standpoint. How do you think that could play out from what we've been to where we are right now?
Well, I think, Gabe, from what you said, right, from the end user, right, that experience in Liberia, right, if I'm not getting electricity for 3 hours, 4 hours, a whole day, right, I have a problem. And so my knee-jerk reaction is, hey, what is going on at LEC? What is the management doing? What is the government doing?
Right.
And from there, our reasoning goes to, what, there's a lot of just inefficiencies. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so we go down this rabbit hole, right? And so on the marketplace, it was interesting because this article came out and we wanted to know, for us who have been tracking this, has there been any progress? Are we getting better? Are we moving this needle forward, or are we not?
Right.
And I think by the numbers, we're going to see that, yes, we are moving it forward. But the question is, based on what we have, could we have been doing better?
Right.
And the management that was there that just stepped down, should we keep them or should we look to get another management and so forth? Now, remember, we started this journey. I'll just go back to President Sirleaf's time. And we started this contextually. We were running a lot of generators, heavy fuel generators, because we had a hydro facility that had been damaged during the war. And we were trying to repair this, and we're trying to get funding from Asia, China. And I think there was some stuff with the U.S. that, hey, you know what? No, we really should do this from the U.S. side. So it was kind of delayed. And so for a while there, we were just running off a lot of generators, and there wasn't a lot of connections, but albeit we were running some generators. And then we get to 2016, 2018, we have this thing called the MCC, and the MCC is it's a grant through USAID.
Right.
And the MCC steps in, and what happens with the MCC is we have this $250 million, I think, grant, right? And then there's the whole management with Manitoba, I think. That's what it was called. They started managing this, and then of course we had some CEOs, and the current CEO of LEC was actually the chairman, Money Captain.
Right. Yeah.
And so we got the hydro, right. We got that hydro thing going, but President Sirleaf was kind of stepping out, right? So she was kind of on her way out, and then we had Ebola and all of those weird stuff. Then we had, of course, the West African power pool coming in and so forth. But we still were not getting the electricity and everything while all this stuff is happening in the background. So what I'm saying is that the LEC, if we look at them today, if you can share, and then you can kind of reel me back in. But just by the numbers from the article, there appears to be some progress.
Let me see if I can put this article up. Okay.
So,
can you can pitch it? You can do the sliding because I don't have.
Yeah, definitely.
Please.
So, then of course we have this article comes out, right? Okay, we all knew, yes, this guy's going to be stepping down, but this article is released, right? It's like, hey, highs and lows with electricity, right? So right now, by the numbers, you have about 247,000 connections. And by the way, anybody feel free, you can check this. This is from the LEC site, the website. And and by the way, the numbers here are very close to being accurate because there are two auditing firms, and there's another company that's there that's been monitoring this. If you want to dive into it a little bit deeper, and they've received some international funding for some of this stuff. So you have about 247,000 customers connected, and so that gives you access to about 1 million people. They have about 895 employees. If you haven't been to the headquarters, it's a little bit challenged to get there because it's in Waterside, it's West Point, so you have to go through certain areas to get there. But that's part of them spreading some of these government agencies into different areas. Medium volt, we have about 11 of them. These are the different substations. So the electricity, high power, it gets to shoot down to a lower power, and then you distribute it. So we have about 11. We started with 0 or 1 or 2, and then we went up to 4 or 5. But in the past 10 years or so, we've worked our way up to 11. There's about 338 kilometers of 66 kilovolts. So that's the medium voltage line. And then you have about 73 megawatts demand. So at any given time, at a very peak, the demand is going to be about 73. Okay. We have about 2,191 kilometers of connections. That means if you count the line from the big line to your house, right? From the big line to the company, you have about that. And then in about 2 years or 3 years, or maybe since its time, which I'm not sure about this one, but there's a total of about 3,102 transformers. Okay. So that's just LEC by the numbers. And we look at rates. 2017, I think we're at 55. Now we're at 24. So some of us, we might say, hey, this is very good, but behind the numbers, there's a lot of things I think we'll get into it. Okay. And then we get into the CEO transition, but I think we'll we'll stop right there for now.
Perfect. Let me, maybe we can go back to 1 second here. Um, let me see if I can. Okay, so from maybe to you or and Jimmy, we have, this is 247,000 customers, one over 1 million people with access. That's 247 either businesses and consumer and regular household combined, over 1 million people. What do you guys think has been, from at least from what we've seen so far and what you've discussed so far, there's been, nevertheless, besides the management challenges, there's been growth. What do you think has been contributing towards that growth? And how do you think the next person can maybe continue with that?
You said what has been contributing to the growth?
To the growth, right? Because from everything that William has shared so far, I had a pessimistic view of LEC, and I to understand from the management side and the quantitative side, the revenue side, I still do. But from our infrastructure side, and I think Jimmy, this is where both of you have a background in that, right? There's been a little bit of growth here, right? Nevertheless, besides the management inefficiency, and what do you guys think has been contributing to that?
Okay.
To that growth,
Right.
How do you think we can even improve it?
Yeah. I mean, electricity is highly significant, right? It
Right.
underpins economic growth, social development, and poverty alleviation. So it's something that we have to have if we're going to come out of this poverty. But despite how important it is, there are challenges that we face to get it, and mostly it's infrastructure gaps. We don't have enough. The grid it's not extensive enough to cover places right in Monrovia. There are places right in Monrovia that are uncovered yet. So what has been driving this expansion? We've been putting significant investment into it. The American ambassador came up the other day and said that the U.S. alone, they said they've put almost $1 billion into restoring electricity in the country. So the inefficiencies that you mentioned maybe is how they've been dispersing the funds, the way they've been doing it. It might have been not have been the most prudent way. It might have even been wasteful.
Right.
There might have been other significant losses elsewhere, but it's disappointing. We've got when did the new hydro come online? I think it was 2015.
Yeah, I think about that.
Right, the new hydro. Yeah. So when the new hydro came along, that added some incentive. At least now we had some electricity available. But what has been the criticism is we did not build enough distribution lines.
Yeah,
those are the lines that bring the electricity to people's houses and people's neighborhoods. There's not enough of that. But what has always been the challenge, I can tell you this, working with LEC, the LEC has always had two problems or more, but let me make this most. One, our largest consumer is the government.
That's
and they
accurate.
don't pay the bills, and they don't pay.
Mm-hmm.
That has been a huge hindrance on the prosperity of the company.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing was we have to target industrial customers. You see, the moms and pops, those ones in the neighborhood, even though they need it, they don't consume very much. And electricity is given to it, economies of scale. The more you have it, the cheaper it is to produce. But there has to be a demand for it, and they have to
Right.
be able to pay for it. So, what we used to do was try to get it to business areas where the factories are,
Mhm.
and it would behoove anyone to target industrial customers. Those are the people who actually pay enough to support the whole effort. But
Yeah.
the neighborhood, individual homes, they're very low consumers, and
Yeah.
that's what makes it drive. That's what helps drive the cost up, because they're very low consumers, and it's not available. But so what we have to do is expand targeting industrial customers.
Okay.
I remember the Ghana, before Ghana, you were talking about Ghana just the other day.
Right.
Before Ghana reached where they are today, when they wanted to build their dam at Akasumu Dam, they were
Mhm.
turned down.
Yeah.
And they only got it when they had arranged a deal with a bauxite company that
Right.
was going to come, and they were going to consume millions and millions of kilowatt hours. And so when they saw that they had the potential to pay back the loan, they were granted the loan. So in other
Mhm.
words, the only thing that's going to help drive this is industrialization. And we
Industrialization.
have to put it to places that the factories will have access to it, and encourage growth in industrialization, so that it will drive down the cost of electricity.
Perfect. Uh, William, I know
Yeah.
as you pointed out earlier. Maybe you can maybe respond to the same question, but based on some of the things that Jimmy talked about, the industrialized customers to help drive down the cost because these people will buy these things, electricity in volume.
Mhm.
You've also highlighted some of the, you know, the reduction in terms of the price from 2017
Mhm.
to where we are right now, from 35 cents per kilowatt. I think we're at
Yeah.
24 cents per kilowatt, right? So
Mhm.
those are some of the things that I was highlighting. So there's been a little bit of improvement in terms of the cost. That's because of, you have efficiency in terms of maybe the cost of bringing customers online is cheaper. So
Right.
it's been driven down throughout um, since 2017 up to where we are right now.
Mhm.
But there's still lags uh, in terms of, I think Jimmy alluded to this, expansion in terms of bringing it to business customers. How do you think that can be achieved, from an infrastructure standpoint, before we jump into the numbers?
Right. I think definitely those the goal, and I think what we've seen here from the article from the CEO report, um,
Hmm.
is some of the things that needs to be done to kind of get to that space, right? Which is, hey, there just has to be certain movement forward, right?
Right.
And but I think to Eastman point, or
Hmm.
maybe it's we need more capital to be
Hmm.
invested if we want to accelerate this type of progress. We need
Hmm.
more capital, and we kind of need it fast, right? Um, so we can't create another hydro plant without capital financing, right? Uh,
Okay.
and the reason why I say this is we get a lot of electricity, or we pay a lot of money for electricity
Hmm.
to Ivory Coast, right? Because we
Yep.
import a lot of electricity. Now,
Mm-hmm.
anybody that's familiar with the layout for Liberia, the geography, will know that to attempt to run a transmission line from the Atlantic Ocean area, which is where Mount Coffee is, really in the city area,
Mm-hmm.
to run it all the way up to Nimba, it's economic suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we do over there is that we import electricity from Ivory Coast because that's a huge country. They're able to deliver. And Nimba, we have some major, like Jimmy said, we have some major manufacturer. We have some major, what do you call it? Mining. We
Yeah, mining
have
company.
major
Right.
companies over there. So
Yeah.
we don't
Right.
want that capital to be going to another country, right? That could be some kind of revenue that we could actually capture.
Right.
But we're not there. So that's something we need to do is figure out how we can put something over there that we can be the ones that can benefit from that revenue. But it definitely will not be from connecting a line, running it all the way through. So that's something that I think needs to be done. The other thing is from the report, what I saw, and let me just go to that slide because I think Jimmy, you kind of touched on it, which is um, the
Which one?
government, right? The government of Liberia, right, represents 14% of the energy,
Okay.
right? So we really just want to look at the solid numbers, and what we see from those numbers is that they have a debt of about $18 million,
Right here. Right.
right? So how are you going to manage that? Can you go ahead one more slide, Gabriel? Yeah, right
Is it
there.
right here? Yep.
Yeah, you see, I mean, $18 million, right, Jimmy? That's what you were
Yeah.
talking about. When we really look, because this is the marketplace, so we got to look at numbers. We're not just, low level here, right? You can imagine what LEC can do with $19 million, right? Um,
So what you're
so
saying is that the government owes LEC, which is a government-owned entity, $18 million. They can't pay debt to them, to themselves, technically.
right,
Well, no, actually, the electricity consumption is budgeted every single year by each ministry,
Mhm.
but they don't
Okay.
pay it.
Yeah,
They don't pay it.
Right.
That's the
Right.
funny part about it.
but
It's a
that's what
line
Gabriel
item
is
in
saying, Jimmy.
everybody's budget, but they
Right.
don't
That's
That's what
what.
I'm
pay
saying.
it.
So this is a government-owned entity, right? Meaning from the way I under, and I will put this back onto you, both of you, right? This is a government-owned entity, meaning they expect it at some point to generate revenue. But some of the services that LEC provide, which is electricity, the government uses it, right? So in essence, LEC expect the government to pay its debt back to LEC so they can utilize that money and say, hey, we provide these services to you and other business customer and the regular consumer. Here is the profit that we're making. But if LEC itself is owed 18, technically $19 million from the government, it kind of it kind of is a strain to LEC to operate because this is revenue that it expects that it is not getting. So in essence, the government is sabotaging itself, another arm of its revenue generating entity that should be contributing towards it. Am I making this? Am I making sense here? Right?
Oh,
And that is
definitely.
that. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Jimmy. Go ahead.
That is what's lending to the argument that we should privatize LEC. If we privatize LEC, where the government is no longer a co-owner, then any private entity, when government doesn't pay, they will cut them off. You see, that's what LEC can't. As it is now, LEC can't say, okay, we'll not have electricity at the ministries since they didn't pay their
Right.
bills, or at the legislature since they didn't pay their bills. They can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a private enterprise, they will cut their heartbeat because it'll be about profits. So
Right.
there's a strong argument that we should privatize. How they would do it is because it's a small grid. It will be challenging, but I think after looking at the feeble attempt in management over all the years and the amount of waste and the slow progress, I think the best way to do it is to privatize it. We need to, government doesn't run enterprise businesses very well. They're not structured like that. They're not oriented like that. So give it to
Okay.
a business person who's all about profits and staying afloat. They will run it in a much more efficient way.
Okay.
But that's an argument for
So
another day.
Larry,
yeah,
I mean,
definitely that,
Will.
because I know definitely the debate is going to be, this is the largest customer, government of Liberia. So are you going to pull the plug on them if they don't pay as a private entity? So that's definitely something we can get into, maybe like a part two. But to what
Yeah.
Jimmy had mentioned earlier, this is one of the, I guess, constraints to um, revenue, right, or to
Hmm.
LEC maybe moving certain things forward more, is on this. But let's
Yeah.
get into the, there's just more we can unlock. Power
Yeah.
supplier payments.
Yeah.
Gary, if you can share my
Could you
screen.
share the screen again? Could you go back to
Yeah.
Yeah.
share?
Yeah. Let me do that.
One more
Let
forward.
me know.
Power supplier. Yeah, yeah, right
Right.
there.
Right here.
So,
Okay.
what are we looking at? Right, is from we owed about 32 million, and just to recollect, you guys, Minister Twer, the former Minister of Finance, he has spoken about this bill that was owed for electricity that we import. So that was about 32 million. We paid about, up to now, from the report, what Money Captain has written. Some of this was paid during the former Minister of Finance, and it continues to be paid. So we've paid about 27 million, right? So we have a balance about 5 million, and then we have the Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Senegal, Guinea line.
All right.
Um, and we owe about $1 million. So this is supplier, power coming in, and these are some of the payments that we've been making. So LEC is, if you're looking at this, of course, the weight and the balances, but government of Liberia on one end, and then you have this LEC payments that's being undertaken, of course, through the government of Liberia. So I don't know if you can give them a couple of points or not, but Jimmy, what are your thoughts?
Based on the numbers that we have here,
Mhm.
I think we just talked about the government of Liberia owing 19 million. If the government of Liberia just pays us 18 million that it owes to LEC, LEC can pay this debt that it owes to people. Would you agree?
Well, yeah,
It
of
will pay.
course.
It will be able to pay this. Let's say is 6.4. Let's say $6.5 million
Hmm.
outstanding debt that it owes to suppliers,
Yeah,
and still have, what is it, 18 minus 6, that is about 12 million left, or 11.5 million left.
yeah,
Profit to the government, profit that it can bring to the government. But again, here we are from a numerical standpoint. We're sabotaging ourselves, and it's strong, like it's literally creating a constraint with the management. And then in terms of this constraint that is creating at the management at the LEC is also limiting what they can do in terms of really creating resources or creating access to more, bringing more customers online. This is a government that is shooting itself in the leg. That's, for me, that's the whole, uh, that's what I got from all of this. What do you guys think?
right. No, they are. I mean, look, we bring it down to where things impact people, right?
Hmm.
So, let's say you're working for the Liberian auditing company, right? In Liberia, right? that's a government entity.
Mhm.
But now, because these bills haven't been paid, there are certain issues with the infrastructure, and now electricity goes, right. So you don't have electricity. So now you have to what? You spend more money on like generators, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And or you just like, hey, today we just have to take the day off because we're not able to get up and running with electricity. So this impacts the efficiency of the government as well. So this trickles into, of course, major businesses also where the systems do go down. There are times when
Right.
I was in Liberia where, hey, system is just down, or the system has to reboot.
Mhm.
The system has to reboot. But uh, those are some of the inefficiencies that we're trying to kind of work through.
Okay.
Let's look at.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I wanted to add something to that. One of the key things that we have to do, seeing that LEC needs large industrial customers. Anyone coming in the country, like these mining corporations and agreements that we sign, they have to link it so that they will um, rent or consume energy from LEC. That has LEC will grow. We have to tie these things together.
Mhm.
Like I was telling you, just what they did in Ghana. All those mining corporations, we should have tied something. We should have come to an agreement with them that they will consume LEC, and if it requires building a line to where they are or something like that, then it will be worth it. But we
Yeah.
have to because it's so little and it's so challenging. We have to coordinate all our economic development activities so that they support one another. It has to be a wholesome plan, not these silos like this industry is doing its own thing. This industry is doing its own thing. No, it has to be a coordinated effort between all the industries and see how they can best support one another and how we can bring the whole economy back online the way it should be. But
You know,
it's not working without coordination. It's not going to work without, I
And
mean,
that is a management issue.
strategic coordination.
right, right. It is. It is. It is. So let's transition it because I think we're tiptoeing into the management side, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
let's look at something that's going to segue us into the management conversation. Can you go to the LEC revenue growth first? LEC revenue right there. Go one more. I think yes. So one more back, Gabriel. Thanks. So this is from 2022. So we were at 24 million.
Mhm.
Then we had 100% increase,
Mhm.
almost 100 plus, right?
Yeah,
To
over 100. Right.
2023,
Right.
Yeah.
$54 million, right? And then we went to the anticipation is that by October 2024, well, not anticipation, but it's at 56 million right now,
Yeah.
right? And then we projected to be at $68 million before the end of the year. So from
Interesting.
2022 to 2024, the revenue will increase by about 183%. Now, that to me is the question is this electricity theft? Is that what it is? Do we give management? I mean, should this just be, hey, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing,
So,
right?
um, there's a lot to unpack from this slide. So, from 2024 in 2022, that was 25 million. I mean, 28 million, 24 million, right? At
Mhm.
247,000 customer. That is $97 per customer. And if you go to 2023 at 54.6 million in 2023, that is At double, you're right. So in the cost is now $221 million per. I mean $221 per customer. So the cost for customer increase keeps increasing. At 56 million, we go 229, and the projected at 68 million. That would now put the cost per household, per consumer, per household, which is one household, which is 247,000 we have, at $275 per year. For me, that is still from the average. I don't know. Then again, you might say that is too expensive, Gabriel, from an average consumer household standpoint, because the average civil servant person makes
Mhm.
$150 per month.
Right.
How are they able to afford this? But so for me, from a purely capitalistic management standpoint, I think this is good business to grow revenue this much. Anybody who look at this company and say they want to invest in it, they look at, if you only show them these figures here, they will say this is a very highly growth oriented entity. Why aren't they making money? I mean, that we've already figured out, right?
Right.
We've already figured out. And I think the question I want to pose to you, since we're on the business aspect of this, is to you. I think Jimmy talked about this. And I think the CEO, Money Captain, actually mentioned this. He highlighted that the business side, the business customers, are where the constraints are, right? That's what's costing the company a lot of money. So if you are making a lot of money, but your line, the business line is dragging you down, why not focus on the area of the business that's what you're getting more for your buck? Meaning, if the consumer, or even I think the other segment is the social
Mhm.
customer, whoever those are. I don't know. Probably those are nonprofit organization, right? And so for me, that is the biggest question here. This is lots of growth, 183% growth operation, right? And
Mhm.
for me, this is lot. There is lot of opportunities here, but I think the problem here is that most of the resources are being spent maybe evenly across the board, when he's supposed to be taking a step back to say, okay, if the business customers aren't that profitable, let's take some of the resources and drive them into the consumer side and those other NGOs that are where we're getting a lot of money from. So for me, I think that's the only thing that I can unpack from this. But there's a lot more to be unpacked from there. But I think the so I don't initially I thought maybe it was a management problem, you know, but maybe it could be back politics in terms of how to really run this company. Maybe he has no control
Well,
in terms of what
oh,
happens.
let me chime in real quick. Okay,
Right,
power theft has always been an issue.
right,
Okay.
Um, and power theft comes from mostly households and people tapping into the lines, illegal connections, and stuff like that. All right. But as much as I see revenue growing here, I want to know what the costs are like. Because
right.
if you're, like I said, electrical generation is given to economies of scale. So if you're getting larger and bigger and bigger and bigger, your costs should be coming down.
Hmm.
So I have to ask, what were the costs as you experience this growth in revenue?
Hmm.
Show me what the costs were. Show me your expensive. I have to see the other. I have to see the other.
The other
What's
side
that?
of the token. Right.
Yes, I need to know to make sure that your costs are being contained, or where you're losing revenue is not enough, because we already have a huge overhead debt, right? Because
Mhm.
the money to build the hydro, we have to pay. We're doing some debt servicing there, I'm sure,
Mhm.
right? I don't see that in mention anywhere. There are too many things that are, and beside that, even the growth side. Okay,
Mhm.
you jumped up 100%. I want to know, how did you do that? What
Yeah.
caused such a jump?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
explain the jump to me. Where
Explain
where
that.
what were you doing different? Did you have more customers? Did you build more lines? What is the reason for the jump? And then I'd have a clearer picture of how better we're doing. But
Yeah.
we need a deep dive.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, remember, we talking about the management part, so we can't let this thing go off easy
Okay.
now. We gotta put this guy through the ringer. So let's go to the CEO transition and let's see what he said about that, right? Um it's gonna be in the back.
In the back.
Yeah,
Uh,
keep going. Or I guess forward, whichever way. This is the last one. So it's gonna be maybe deck 3 or 4, the slide 3 or 4. Do you have it?
um,
Yeah, right
yeah,
there. CEO transition, right?
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So pretty much one of the things here was that hey, we got this Mount Coffee. There were 4 turbines that needed to be repaired, right?
Hmm.
Sorry, so there's only 3 out of 4 turbines that were functional, and we know that they plan on adding more.
Hmm.
But that's something that he said he got working for. Reduction in commercial losses. Jimmy, I think you touched on that, right?
He did,
So
yeah.
about 33.4%. Um, increasing the revenue, of course. So maybe there's something. Expansion of the grid. So I think with that MCC, the funding for the MCC, I think is about going to households that are underserved or unserved communities, right? So
Hmm.
I think with some of these grants, they're not really saying, hey, we want you to run this line to connect to these major companies, right?
Yeah.
Major
Target, right?
companies. They're
Restriction.
like, hey, we're concerned about poverty reduction. That was the whole thing with this 200 something $1 million grant, was poverty reduction. And so he said that they added 9,974 households. So I think there's a relationship between this theft, the reduction in commercial losses, and
The
the
type of customer
households,
they're
right?
adding.
Yeah,
Right.
right. So I think that's good. And then lastly, the transition into renewable energy. So there's a 20 megawatt, and then there's a 16.5 megawatt. So I think during the dry season, I think that's the goal, is that there should be less reduction, less outages, right? Less outages. So this is what the CEO is saying, that this is what I've done since I've been here, right, in this office.
Hmm.
But we're looking now at the transition. So he's going out, and so we're looking at this to say, hey, is this guy control his destiny, or he just had no control with everything that was going on? And most importantly, if we were in the decision seat, are we saying, hey, we want to bring this guy back? Or are we saying, hey, you know what? I think it's time for someone else to bring us into this new era. Jimmy?
Jimmy, I have a thought, but I'll let Jimmy go first. All right.
Yeah, that's a good question. Anyone who comes to LEC will have to. Well, there's a learning curve. You'll have to start to You have to go into the numbers and the details to find out how it functions, how it runs. So there's going to be a little bit of that for anyone. Um,
Mhm.
Looking at this sheet, you can tell he what was okay. Look, repair of thermal units. You have to keep the units running, so that's an expense. He looked at expanding the grid. Now, for me, expanding the grid to households is necessary for the social benefit for people. But again, I said it has to be directed toward industrial and commercial
Yeah,
customers. That is who really pays the bills. Yeah, I know. I know. I need light in Soul Town and all those different places in Douala, everything. I know I need light there, but I need somebody who's gonna help pay the bill so we can keep the ship afloat. And that has to be emphasized. I didn't see him emphasizing that in this. Okay, the
yeah, he
transition
didn't.
to
Yeah,
transition to renewable energy is a good idea. We got abundant sunlight. Why there's some good bit of overhead cost in getting to renewable energy, but definitely it's an avenue we have to explore. And I'm not sure how about the wind and the geothermal abilities. The lot of heat in the ground. We can use geothermal techniques to producing an energy as well. But again, we need a technical solution, but we also need a business solution to LEC. You can't have one without the other, and that I think that is where the challenge has been. I don't think he did such a terrible job. I think people they're concerned about how much money he makes. They felt
Mhm.
it, but tell you the truth, to for people who do this kind of work, to resuscitate an entire company, it requires a certain amount of expertise, and you're not going to
Yeah,
get it from just anybody. And then you will
yeah,
have to compensate. I was listening the other day when they were grilling Boeing CEO. The first question they asked him said, "How much money do you make?" He said, I make a lot of money, sir." He answered the senator. "No, you make a lot of money. You make about $32 million a year, right?" This is somebody's paid. So anyone at the top of such organizations and like this, they have to be well compensated, because
Yeah.
the kind of work they do requires it. But I think what shrouded the shroud of secrecy, or nobody was, it was not transparent, everything he was doing, is why we see where we are. If we had gotten regular reports to show that, okay, we're making this money, this is the thing that people could identify with, and the executive could see these reports, I think it would have helped a lot. But again, we don't have enough numbers to take a deeper dive. But he didn't do too bad. Admittedly, he didn't do all that bad, and
yeah.
we
Yeah.
should
Well,
expect him to
So,
make good money.
so um, the from from just looking at this slide, um, as I said initially, and I think Jimmy, you alluded to that, without knowing, the inner working of some of the challenges he was dealing with until he elaborated on them. I think in a way he was kind of short-handed, um, to be more efficient. If you are looking to expand the grid, but you're only the funding that you're getting only limits you to do underserved communities, meaning that these are low paying people who do not have the ability to pay, right? So in as much that you will do expansion in that, the cost, the time it'll take to recoup from each customer. And I think I had a long response to what's his name, Senator Amara Conan, when he first became senator, and he, you know, took this whole LEC business and put it on his head, thinking that he was, I don't know, whatever crusade or campaign he was running, trying to bring efficiency there. That conversation, died on social media. But one of the this lengthy recommendation that I made to him, which is exactly that I think should have been brought to Mr. Capitans or the next persons from the business side, is this: there are technically three lines of business for LEC: the social, which are technically the NGOs; the regular consumer, which is the regular household for the everyday Joe Blow; and then there's the business customers, which, like Jimmy talked about, the industrialized, the companies, right? First thing you have to do is, one, how much does it cost me to bring each customer in these three category online, right? If I want to take a customer, if I want to take, let's say, William is a business customer, and I want to bring electricity to William factory, how much will it cost me to bring that line, each line, including the resources, the infrastructure? How much it'll cost me to bring that to you as a business customer? And let's say the same thing for Jimmy. Jimmy's a regular household, right? Everyday guy in the community, with family, with his house. How much is that going to cost me? The second thing is, how long is it going to take me to recoup? Let's say if it costs me 200, let's say $500 to bring each person online, how long would it take the business customer for me to recoup? How long would it take the consumer, regular consumer, to recoup? How long would it take the NGO to recoup based on the different price structure, right? From that, you can put that into a model and model it to say, and that will give you a good indication to say, these are the people that are more profitable. It'll take me less time to recoup on either the business line or the consumer line. These are the people I need to put more resources in, right? Because they have the ability to recoup faster. One, two, they're more profitable from the bottom line. When I can recoup and do that over a long period of time by focusing these, I can take the profit from these and I'll focus on the low community, the low income community, right? Because I know with them, if I bring them online, it will cost me the same amount or even more, but it'll
Mhm.
take me a long time to recoup that money. If
Right.
let's say it was taking me let's say 6 months to recoup on the business side, let's say the consumer side will probably take me a year. You can make that logical standpoint. You can figure that out. You can put that into a model to say, okay, this is what it is. From business, it'll take me 6 months. For a regular consumer, it'll take me a year. From
Yeah.
the NGO, maybe about 9 months or so. So you know that, you know who to target. The second aspect of that is you can use that same model to predict your electrical needs, meaning how many of those business lines you're bringing online every year, right? How many business customers am I bringing online every year? How many NGOs am I bringing online every year? How many household consumers am I bringing online each year, right?
Yeah.
What that is going to do, you can put that into a model again. Even if you don't have analysts at your company, at the LEC that can do that, this is what we use universities for here. When Uber were having the same problem, and I told this to the senator then, that's what Uber did. Lyft does the same thing. It's put these data out to the universities, and they work with these economists at the university to help them build that model. You can now take that model
Mhm.
and project the country electrical needs. Say if we're bringing in, let's say, 30,000 customers from business line, the consumer line, and the NGOs every year, by 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, we're going to need another hydro. That way, you're able to project how much electrical need the country will need in those 5 years, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, right?
Right.
As well as be able to project the revenue growth in those time, because you already factor in, you've already modeled out how much it costs to bring each customer online and how much time it costs, how much it takes for them to recoup, for you to recoup, to break even. But these are some of the challenges that I don't think that a lot of thought being put into it. I think maybe he had the ideas to do these kind of things. But again, if you're being strong armed by the grant restriction, you can't really do so much. You can only do what the grant allows. So I think this is where his shortcomings are.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely. Go to the grid expansion because I'm surprised, Gilbert, that you kind of hit on something. So in the city of Painesville and Bartonsville, they connected about 1,000 right there. They connected about 1,039 household, right? So
Mhm.
it's about 630,000. So that's about 600 bucks, about 660 bucks. Okay.
Mhm.
And to what you were saying, right? I mean, most of the people out there, are they going to be using that much? In West Africa, you're looking at between $200 to $300 for like a connection. So
Mhm.
we are about twice that cost.
Mhm.
Uh, Substations, bringing these substations. If you go to the next one, just to give the folks an idea, the substation additions right there. If you go on your slide, can you go to the substation additions? Yeah. So we have one. I was at in Conga Town.
Mhm.
Now the one that's at RIA, uh, the one that's at RIA is next to a real estate development that's about 1,000 acres.
Mhm.
Okay, there's a guy over there that wants to build a planned community, and this substation sits right next to that community. Not on top of it, but close by.
Mhm.
and so that's something that is there. And then of course the one that's in shuffling. By the way, I saw all of these substations when I was in Liberia.
You
That's just
visit
to,
all of them.
yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
didn't go inside, but I did go in, lay my eyes on them, and I said, oh well, this is something that we're kind of moving forward, right?
Mhm.
So this is interesting. We didn't go over the renewable. I think we're going to save the renewable for another time. But
Mhm.
last, let's look at the audits that are going to be coming down the pipeline. We'll look at this in part two. But audits, right?
Mhm.
So the GAC, they're going to be auditing LEC from 2018 to 2023. Right. So that's one. Now I don't know if that's a political audit or not.
It is a political audit, so that's why I'm even laughing. But let's go ahead.
Remember, this is our marketplace. So and then there's another audit by PwC that's only going to be covering the period of 2021 to 2022, right?
Mhm.
And what was not mentioned is that the grant, that MCC grant, also
Yeah.
does an audit, and that audit is going to be conducted by Mathematica, which is a company that was hired to look at the performances and everything for um, LEC.
Mhm.
So they've been with LEC as far as the evaluation. They've been with them now since I would say 2017. 2017. So there's a few reports for those who are interested in reading that report. Um, that's on the MCC Millennium Challenge
Challenge course
Corporation.
bar. Yeah.
So for them to look at that. So those are the current audits um, that we can kind of anticipate.
It-
So the next, so real quick, do
mhm.
you think the next CEO, do you think it's going to be more of a political, or do you think it's going to be more of a
I
techno?
think
If you
Jimmy, you want to take a
if
you want to go before I.
if you're looking at this,
That's
would you
a
look
that's an
at
interesting
politics?
question.
Yeah.
I think you can't to run somewhere at LEC. You have to have some technical experience, you know, but you also have to be a very strong administrative and management expert because there are going to be many challenges. I think, though, looking at the appointments I've seen, I wouldn't be surprised if it's somebody else, maybe from LOFA. I know, like a guy called Francis Molu. He was the deputy managing director when I was there. He would be a good choice because he knows the system. And but what I think the problem here, this LEC should be a national problem. I don't think it's fair to leave the CEO or the managing director of LEC all by himself. This requires the whole country to develop a think tank to come up with the solutions on how to resolve the LEC issue. I think it's a national concern, and I think it's unfair to just make it a CEO because um, it requires the government and correlate other developments with them. So that's why it should be developed in a more nationalistic way. The Senate can be involved and create the legislation that's required. The government can lend its expertise so the various ministries and the industries that they run can can coordinate with the development for LEC. I don't think it should be left alone just with the managing director. I think this should be a national project that everybody is taking part in. I think that's how it will succeed.
Okay. Thank you,
So
Gabriel. Go ahead.
for me, For me, I think it's going to be, in as much that I hope it will be a technical person. I think this is going to be a political person, and there's indication again the fact that the GAC is going to audit LEC. Uh, it's an indication of it, and the reason why I even say that, people might say, "Oh, you're being a little biased." There's a audit of the central bank that is still sitting. There are many audits the GAC did, and not a single thing was done about those. So the fact that we have PwC, PwC editing, I mean auditing the LEC, and you have another audit from the GAC, I just think, why can't you go with the one that PwC is doing, or do you not trust the one that PwC is going to do? You know, are you going to, trying to figure out for corruption? You know, for me, these are the kind of thing that kind of sabotages the some of the growth opportunity areas that we're supposed to have in the government, such as the LEC, from being more efficient, right? Um, this by making this thing political again, we're going to politicize the the LSE, as we did with the central bank and every other entity within the country, and they're going to just be bogged down with these kind of report. So I wish they can really, I think Jimmy had said that, sit down, bring somebody technical in here and give them, that individual, the autonomy to really look at the efficiency, the inefficiency that lies here from the managerial side, from the revenue and cost side, and then also look at it from an infrastructure standpoint. How do we expand this entity and make it more efficient for everyone, as opposed to coming up with another audit, and they report the result of that audit is going to be, oh, this guy was corrupt because he was appointed by whoever appointed him. If we put somebody there from our administration, they're going to be more efficient, which is this easy way out. Which so I think this is going to be another political appointment if they do that. But if they do, that is going to bog us down, and it's going to make this thing more inefficient than it already is. Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that none of you said that LEC risk being used as a piggy bank.
I mean, it already is.
You've not. I mean, when somebody see those numbers, I mean, in our current
yeah, actually, that's a good point. That is a good point. The growth numbers, right?
I mean, if I'm seeing this, I'm thinking someone is going to say, well, they were running some kind of way with 24 million. Now we have 68 million. I don't see the incentives to cut that $18 million check. And beyond that, I think we can take from there to do some other projects.
No. And that's a logical point to make in terms of how we think in Liberia. But it's, as I said initially, I was one of the biggest critic of this guy until you sent me those reports, and I saw that article, and I said, okay, this guy really, in as much there might be a little bit of inefficiencies here, there's certain limitation on him as well, such as the grant and what he can do with it and what he cannot do with it. But from a revenue standpoint, and I think the only thing that we're missing here, I think Jimmy said that, is the cost. So if you can look at the cost side, how much he's spending, and compare that to the revenue side. But even if you're comparing what is actually right now outstanding, which is 6.5 million, to what the government owes him, which is his account receivable, he is still netting an $11 million profit from what we're seeing, even without looking at the cost side of things here, right? So if you give this person the autonomy without the restriction that is placed on him with the MCC compact grant to just, focus on low income houses and stuff, I think there's a lot that can be done here in terms of, from an infrastructure standpoint, expanding LEC to, the businesses or even the consumer households, and in areas where he can really continue to grow this thing, over 100% every year. But I think we're headed down a dangerous path here. I'm waiting to see who will get appointed.
Well, remember, part two, we want to. I really want us to go back and think about this, because I can see this piggy bank thing not seriously. So we really want to look at that next week. We're going to look at some of the cost, wholesale cost, and
Mhm,
then the retail cost for electricity to see what kind of margins there are
mhm,
on this thing because from these numbers, if they are what they are, then maybe there is a case right now for either the private sector, right, Jimmy, or maybe also private, but from outside investors coming in, right? If these numbers hold. So we want to look at that. We want to look at this. And then also um, the board of directors that's currently
yeah.
there. We didn't get into that today, but we can get
I think
into
they
it.
appointed some new people, right?
Yeah, they appointed some new folks. Um, and then we didn't even talk about the fact that now we have this website.
Hmm.
We didn't even talk about that.
You
Trust
have
me, for us
tariffs. Yeah.
who's been monitoring this thing, we got to go through a couple of leaps and bounds to get any information, right? We got to
Yeah.
go,
Right.
but the fact that we have this thing up now, it's running. That's something we want to talk about, and want to talk about the regulatory body. So there are two boards.
Mm.
There's the LEC board, and then there's the
You
regulatory
know,
board.
right.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
And actually, we have a minister for land, mines, and energy.
Hmm.
I think the minister has a significant role to play for the development of LEC. In fact, I don't look at it like for the development of electricity in the country. That's why I said this project should not be limited to LEC. It is supposed to be a national project to attain a certain level of energy efficiency within the country. I don't think we should. It doesn't make sense to leave it to LEC. It's just a small part of the parcel. They just the distributor, the generator, and distributor of electricity. But it's a whole concept of coordination that's going to be required to actually bring energy use to a level, a satisfiable level for us as a people. This
Right.
this is not. This is a whole national project, and I think the minister and the president need to take part in this. Come up with a grand scheme of how we're going to reach energy efficiency at a certain date. Let's say 2030.
Yeah.
Okay, but just leaving it with LEC, it's not. It's not the solution. Not at all.
Correct. We got you give us a little bit of homework, Jimmy. So it's going to be exciting next week because also we're going to look at the rates compared to some of our neighbors in West Africa, and also one of the biggest question we will ask is, or we'll get an answer to is, are we at the point now to invite manufacturers to Liberia?
There you go.
Yeah.
That
Are
is
we there?
going to be the difference right there.
Right.
Right
So
there.
are we there yet? Are we there yet? So real quick in your wrap up, you got to give this management a grade. You give them a grade, and you have to say if yay or nay, it's time for a new management, or you want to see maybe if this guy will should stay a little longer. But you got to give him a grade, and you got to be straightforward. You got to be tough. Don't be easy.
Yeah.
Really, you go first.
Okay, first, I think I wouldn't. I think he does deserves a thumbs up. However,
Mhm.
he can't be an entity unto himself. He can't be the CEO and the chairman of the board and all that at once. I think they do need a little bit more oversight from
Mhm.
someone else. And I believe also that there should be more transparency because of how important this area is, and there's need to be more national awareness. We did see some campaigns with Mary Broad and whatnot to stop illegal connections, but I think they have to be more consciousness to this industry. and the president and the minister of energy, mines and energy, they should have a huge development plan put together for energy in the country. That's the way you address something like this. This is a national issue.
Right. Right. I agree. I think right now I look at it and I'm like, this is tough because he's the secretary of the board. And I'm like, man, the secretary has a lot of work. So I don't know if I want him to be I don't want a board of director, yes, but I wouldn't want him to be chairman or the secretary. So that's something that Jimmy, I think you have a strong point. So so put you in the corner, Jimmy. It's you think another person or
No, he needs some help. I'd keep
help,
him there.
but give him help.
People looking at his salary.
Mhm.
Again, let's admit it. People looking at his salary. What? 17,000. Listen,
That's nothing.
if you're
Yeah,
going to run, thank you, Gabriel. If you're
that's
going
nothing.
to run an entire corporation like that and resuscitate it, bring it to a level, you're going to need somebody with a lot of expertise.
Yeah,
It sounds like a lot of money, but just like Gabriel, it's not a whole lot of money. We're talking about corporations paying their people 32 million a year.
mhm.
17,000 times 12 is what?
That's
Maybe
204.
Two
just a
hundred
little
four thousand.
204,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mid-level managers here make 204,000. You know, it's not that much. And then where you have to have that corporate oversight, it requires you're going to pay somebody well, unless you're going to get somebody cheap who is not good at all.
Well, you're 100% right because that's about 40% of the revenue. Sorry, point 40, less than one
Mm-hmm.
percent is 0.36%, point three
Mm-hmm.
six percent of the revenue. Gabriel,
yeah.
what's
So,
up? Scoring. What do you think?
so for me, I think from a score standpoint, I probably give him a B plus.
Hmm.
And I would also side with what Jimmy said in terms of keeping him there. Um, the I don't think I disagree. I will probably disagree with him being the chairman of the board. From organizational structure, it is by default that the CEO becomes the chairman of the board. You can have board, but you also have to become the chairman of the board. Even though you answer to them, but you also have power within the board. However, I think they need a lot of people in the board structure that have expertise that can guide him. In as much that he may have experience in those, you need people that have management expertise. He will need that help. They need people that have infrastructure expertise from an energy standpoint, like people like yourself or the other gentleman that we're going to have on Saturday, Phillips, right? You need someone there who has efficiency standpoint, right? Someone who can look at, from a customer standpoint in terms of how do you balance customer efficiency, right? What are the some of the things that we do with customers that that is costing us? How can we improve those things? That's what the management come from. So I think he need expertise on the board from those different areas to be able to guide him,
Hmm.
uh, to run this thing. Also, I think one of the things we'll probably talk about as well is, you know, we talk about capital infusion, and we've spent $1 billion into this entity. And really, if he wasn't making any profit, trust me, somebody would have wanted him out a long time ago, right? So that's another thing we have to look at too. So I think for me, I think he's doing from initially, as I keep saying throughout this show, that I thought he was doing a horrible job until you look at it. Um, and so for me, I think he's doing an okay job. He's doing
Okay.
absolutely okay. He just need the right help, and in terms of really, this is at this point building something like that, this is a data environment. Collects data on your customers. If you can't even harness that data, extrapolate that data, relegate that to some of the universities, let them, give them work to do, extrapolate it and give it to them, let them extrapolate it and give you some efficiency things that you can work with and be able to apply those efficiencies in the business and make sure that it continue to be profitable as it is. But for me, I think he's doing an okay job. I will keep
Okay.
him, but bring a lot of help around him. Yep.
Bring a lot of help. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen, for this feedback. I mean, this is the show. This is what we're about here at the marketplace, right? And I think next week we will be talking about that. Look, this guy looks like he will be stepping down, and so we have to. I want us to also look at next week,
Mhm.
just like corporations do here. What type of leader we want in the next, like, in our next manager for LEC? What are some of the things we want to look at? I think that I would want to see more the operation, because I think in Liberia we lack that a lot. We lack a lot of the implementors, leadership,
Mhm.
that kind of leadership. So very, very, very good stuff. With that being said, I think we're doing good with the time, right? An hour and a half. So we've
Yeah,
kept
right
our,
about the
our
hour and a
viewers'
half mark.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And although it doesn't look like it, but we've covered extensively quite a bit. And I
So
think next
one
week,
question to both of
go
you.
ahead.
Mhm.
One question to both of you, and I think this is something we probably can answer the next show. Do you guys think he knew that he was stepping down, that he really planned his stepping down, or was he think he's forced out? The second part is, if he knew that he was going to step down this point, do you think he has groomed somebody who from within can really take the mantle and continue with some of the management experiences and his strategy that he put in place? Because it will be a disservice to the organization and the country itself to take someone who has built this thing up to where it is, generating this kind of capital money, and just bring somebody else completely from the outside who has no idea, and then just come and disrupt this person's not legacy, but some of the fundamental management principle he's put in place, efficiency he's put in place. However, little they might be that were working to be able to guide him to the direction. Do you think he may have been able to groom somebody, or do you think this was something that
Well, the first part of your question, or whether he knew he was stepping down or what, what I understand is that they're not renewing his contract.
hmm
I don't
Okay.
think it's his decision. I think it's the administration's decision, the new administration. But I want to tell you, just like King was just saying, this is not a novice area.
hmm
You know, even if you're a good business person, a good manager, you still
hmm
need to know the dynamics of electrical production and
Production.
distribution and the
Yeah.
economics behind it. You have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
know all of these things. So if they put
Right.
somebody who's not in this area, who's never been in this area, that they're going to be bungling along. They're going to be stumbling in the beginning
Right.
because they have
Right.
to learn it.
Right.
You. That's why I don't know who they're going to go to. I know a couple of people who, they're all a little mature in their years now, but it's going to be very interesting to see who they pick and to
hmm
to go there. And again, you can't leave them all by themselves. This is a national issue. This requires all hands on deck. That's my
Yeah.
my 2 cents.
Good point.
Um, look, this guy has a long track record of over 20 years, 23, 24 years, knowing the ins and out of governments.
hmm
He was a former minister of finance.
hmm
He was a professor. Uh, he wrote um, he wrote a good book on educating Liberians how to navigate through your legislature.
hmm
He knows the country well. He's lived there. He's invested in it, and also at some point he was a chairman, right, of this board
hmm
and everything like that. So you're talking about someone that has been through this thing for about 20 years plus, right?
hmm
So the expectations was high, very high. And then he's also been able to, he did the constraints. Remember, there was a thing that came out, there's this huge study, the constraints on Liberia, and one of those
Okay.
constraints was electricity.
Electricity. Right.
So I mean, the expectation is there. So let's look to see how this thing is kind of panning out. But I want to continue this in part two
Yeah.
because there's so much more. We didn't. And there's some experts we want to invite to come on that can
Mhm.
talk about the true heavy what political and economic heavy lifting. Right? How do you balance these two sides and maintain your sanity? I mean, we didn't even get into that, so I think that that's something that's going to be very, very critical in this role for the next manager. So
Yeah.
that being said, I think for now, I mean, he's leaving, but if he's not, I think I agree with you guys. Is I would keep him there, but I would build some more pieces around him,
Yeah.
and also I would, unless it exists already, but I would force him to have some kind of a transition plan where maybe there's about 4 or 5 other people that are being
Candidates.
groomed, yeah, that
Right.
are being groomed for this transition.
Yeah.
Because we know what happens if this electricity thing falls apart.
Yeah. And
All
that's
right.
how that's how it's supposed to be in any sane organization where the management is serious. They plan the transition, the succession plan. If the next president is coming in 5 years, we already know the target of the next person who's going to be there. 2, 3, 4, 5 people that can be in line. But
Yeah.
that's two is Liberia. So I rest my
Okay.
case.
Take us home. Closing.
You
Gabriel,
got
you
it.
closing? Jimmy,
You
30 seconds closing.
Oh, closing. Well, the energy efficiency sufficiency is highly important for our development. But it requires not just we need private sector participation. We need policy reforms. We need international and regional cooperation. We need a whole drawn out plan. We should be above the stage now that we just coming up with few recovery ideas, just to get by. Now we need to be developing 30, 40, 50-year plans for the industry and the country down the road. I think we need to do the requisite research because this superficial thing is not going to do it for us. We have
Yeah.
to go in depth. We need the very best minds, the PhDs, whoever all they are, and we have to come up with a solution.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. You want me to go, Gabe, and then you can take us home?
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I just want to say that I've been following this thing since 2008, the electricity sector, and I was in Liberia for 3 months in 2024, and I do know this: the summer or the dry season is more warmer than ever, and so there's a pull on this grid, and so
Mhm.
we need to continue to make progress, and I'm hopeful that we will continue to do so from the LEC sector. And I want to invite our listeners next week because we're going to cover some of the other questions that we didn't get to in this part.
Mhm.
Will LEC now be a piggy bank? That's one thing. Are we ready for a manufacturer? That's another thing. Who are the board of directors at the leadership level? Will it be more political or more technical? And will we be able to invite private investors to come and build plants that they can then sell into the grid? Can we be an exporter of electricity? So I look forward to next week inviting everyone back.
All right.
Yeah, I think you guys said it. I think we have a second show Saturday. Um, Hopefully, we can do a very deep dive into some of the things you talk about. But I think for me, the biggest thing here for me is the management aspect of it. Uh, you can look at the infrastructure. You can look at um, the you know the constraint that lies ahead of him that he's faced. I think the biggest thing here is being. I think you mentioned that being able to balance both sides and still be this efficient. I think He deserves a thumbs up for that. But I think, looking forward once he steps down, the biggest thing would be who we put in there to continue to run um, this entity, or else the tragedy would be, politicizing it and making it another NoCal, or making it another port authority, um, where it exists just for existing, but it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So, but it's a lot to talk about next week. Hopefully, we'll dive into this and make sense of it. I think this was a good show, and as always, welcome back, and hopefully we'll continue to run this kind of.
You got to be here next week.
Yeah, I'll be here. That's why I said I'll be here next week.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Other than that,
yes.
Okay.
We are Liberia. Liberia is our home. Liberia people. Liberia.